I'm an avid kind of social media person. I'm big on Twitter and Facebook. I mean big, like everybody knows who I am. I'm famous. No, what I really mean is I really like it, and I post everything about my life. I just throw it all out there. There's like rules of thumb about social media, and there's like two opposing views. One view is that like with social media, you don't want to say too much because you know social media is out there for everybody to see. So I want to be private. I want people knowing about every little area of my life. That's one rule of thumb. And then there's my rule of thumb, and that's my life is a complete and total open book, and I have absolutely nothing to hide. And everybody knows I'm at church right now and knows where I live, so they can rob my house. That's my kind of rule of thumb. Like, I just kind of throw it all out there, the wheat with the chaff, and you can do what you want with it. But that's kind of my thing. So if you've been following me on social media, you know I've been playing up this series a little bit. I sent out a post and said, everybody post this to your wall. And I have to make a disclaimer. I didn't post this series about this series because I thought it was going to be the flashiest series we've ever had, and there's going to be like all kinds of cool stuff, and I'm going to wrestle a tiger, and you don't want to miss that. It's not that kind of a series, and it's not probably going to be even our best series that we've ever had. Like you're going to say, man, of all the series at Life Point, this is the one I remember the most. It may not even be that, but I think, honestly, it's probably one of the most important series that we can discuss at Life Point right now. And the reason being is there is an epidemic, a virus that is infecting our church. Not just Life Point, but church, big church, you know, everybody, church. Is this virus that's infecting us. To give you a little background, to explain kind of where this series is going, and if you want, you can throw up the title slide. This is our series, The Dark Passenger. Now, if you don't know what I'm talking about, and if that phrase doesn't mean anything to you, and I'm just going to warn you right now, this is, to some degree, a PG message. I'm going to try to keep it on the kinder side of PG, but if anything happens and, anyway, just, hate me later. Just don't hate me now. I need to get this out. I want to give you a little background. This is based on a TV series. It just ended its 4th season called Dexter. Now, if you're not familiar with it, it's a pretty dark show. Dexter is a blood spatter analyst for the Miami Police Department. What he does is when there has been a homicide, he goes in and kind of lays out what took place based on the blood evidence in the scene. That's kind of what he does. But Dexter has a secret that nobody knows and that he keeps hidden. And he keeps it hidden for a reason, because he knows that if anybody knew this secret, nobody would ever accept him. In fact, they would see him for what he really is, a monster. They would shun him, judge him, lock him up, put him in the chair. They would never think of him again. And so he hides this secret. The secret is he's a serial killer. He has this compulsion to kill, and he refers to it as his dark passenger. This thing inside of him that drives him to do this, even though he knows it's not right, but he can't seem to help himself. That no matter how hard he tries and no matter how hard he fights, that thing, that voice, that other person, and in some ways that person that is more real and more him than the part that he shows everybody else. And he fights with this for control in himself with this other thing. In the very first episode of the series, Dexter kind of makes this statement. He says, I fake a great deal of human interaction. Actually, I think most people do, but I've gotten very good at it. And as I heard that scene and I heard that line, it was almost from that first time that I decided I had to do a series on this topic of the dark passenger. I look around our churches and I realize, as I come in contact with many Christians, that there are many of us who fake a great deal of Christian interaction, right? There's this face that we let everybody see that says we've got it all together and that we're all good and we're in control and in our lives God is on the throne and we need to display that in some way, shape, or form. But deep down inside there's someone else that we don't want anyone else to see. And the question comes is, like, how did we learn these interactions? These interactions come in different ways. I mean, it's going to be different for all of us. But anytime when in a moment of worship, we worship for this and not for this. It's that mask that we've put on because we want somebody to see something that, or not see something that's lying underneath. We all, in fact, have a dark passenger that's giving this compulsion to us to do things. And it's different. It's hopefully not homicide. Just saying. If it is, keep it to yourself. No. No, really, I mean it. Keep it to yourself. Right? We all have this dark passenger, this compulsion to do things that we know we ought not do. And we know that if anybody ever saw who we really were, they'd never love us. They'd reject us. They'd point their finger at us. They'd hate us. And so what do we do in the church? We put on this mask as we walk in the door. It's a mask of righteousness. It's a mask of holiness. It's a mask of having everything together. It's a mask that I'm okay. This is a virus. The dark passenger isn't actually the virus. It's just a fact of life. The virus is when we try to hide it and put on a mask, because what it does is it sets a precedent that I don't have to be real. We have created in this idea of Christianity, fake it till you make it. Let's be completely honest. We come into our lives as a new Christian knowing that we're all kinds of screwed up. And we look around the churches that we sit in and we see people. And the way they interact with other people, well, you know, I'm doing fine, brother, how are you? And, well, there's this situation, well, I'll pray about that, who walks away and never prays about that. And we sit in our worship services and we raise our hands and we sing loud and we have a smile on our face, but deep down inside, each of our dark passengers are looming and whispering in our ear and vexing us and making us hate who we are. And so we have to project even more so this fake facade to everybody else. And the reason this is so dangerous, and the way you learn how to be this somewhat super Christian on the outside, is because somewhere along the line when you got saved, broken, distorted, hurt, dirty, you came in and you saw the way people acted and you assumed, I don't feel this way, but I want to feel this way, so I'm going to fake it until I make it. I'm just going to put on the air, and then one day when I'm doing this, it won't be this, it'll be this. And I just continue to fake it. And this is the dilemma that we have created in each of our lives, because what happens is you learned it from a previous generation who wouldn't admit that they had a dark passenger. And so you won't admit your dark passenger. And generations that come after us are going to see you and deny their dark passenger. And we're going to live a lie. Year after year, generation after generation. A church full of liars. Wearing masks because we're afraid no one will love us. No one will accept us. And if people possibly knew who I really was. And this is the worst part, is some of us were thinking we're fooling God. Like if God knew who I really was, He'd never love me. He'd never accept me. And so I put on this mask, and this mask is as much for God as it is for people. And God can see right through it. And the problem is we read through Scripture, and I love this. I have lots of discussions with pastors, and when you talk about how church should be done, and one of the things I always hear a lot, and I always get kind of a kick out of it, is like, I want to go back and be a New Testament church. That's what I want to be. Because the New Testament church was not hampered by religiosity and structure and control and manipulation. The original church was pure. And all I can say is the original New Testament church was new. Didn't know anything. And that's not because our religious isn't good and our manipulation isn't good, but the reason they were pure is because they didn't know what they were doing. It's like we're making this stuff up as we go along. We don't know what's going on. We're just making this stuff up. Well, let's do this. You know, and everyone's like, gospel.